We are live, guys. Hello. Oh, you cannot believe how excited I am. So let me just take that banner off so everybody can see exactly who you are. We've got John we're all around the world here, aren't we? So I'm down in Devon. John's a little bit further down in Devon. We've got Stuart all the way up in Scotland. And Michael, you're in Newcastle. Good afternoon, guys.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody. So it's not quite round the world, but it's certainly around the country.
It certainly is. Absolutely. So first thing, let's just go around the room and just see how everybody is and let everybody know who's watching, listening, and what have you, who you are. Tell me a little bit about yourself. So we'll start off with John because you're at the top. You're there. So John, you can go first.
Squares, this isn't it? So yeah, I'm a former civil servant who hated his business, hated his job rather, decided to teach myself internet marketing. Despite not knowing anything about the marketing, not knowing anything about running a business, or indeed having access to the internet. I've become a student of what works over the last 22 years. Decided to write a book 5 years ago, stood on stage, said I'm never writing another book again, then wrote another book, and then another book, and then there's another one on the way. So prolific author now, but yeah. Definitely a student of what works for me.
I love the fact that you now call yourself an author.
Yes.
You're used to being an entrepreneur or whatever. It's cool. It is really cool. So we've got another author in the room, Stuart Mason. Hello.
Hello, Ashley. So, yeah, similar to John from a previous life. So my previous life I was a military air traffic controller. And I felt that as a military air traffic controller, there wasn't enough stress in my life. So I decided to start a printing business. Mission accomplished. And I ran that business and grew that business very successfully. It became one of the biggest printing groups in the country. Multi-million pound turnover, lots of cash, lots of profit, the illusion of wealth. And that business failed on its 20th birthday. Why? Regrettably, it was because of me and the mistakes that I made. So I put that into a book. And where a lot of books focus on how to achieve success, mine came at it from a slightly different angle. Back to air traffic control, I came in at a different altitude. I came in to show business owners how to avoid failure and avoid the mistakes that I made, because those mistakes were being masked by the success. And that's where the book How to Wreck Your Business came from. And that's me, guys.
Absolutely brilliant story. Michael, last but by no means least, sir, let everybody know who you are.
I wish I had a story like Stuart's. That's all I wish.
But do you though?
It's so good. I mean, honestly, I was a roofer working for my dad. It was just so boring. Anyway, so I'm Michael, and if people in the classic elevator pitch, what do you do? And I say, I teach people how to be brilliant. And usually they say, well, how do you do that? And I say, well, I'll find out where they are, where they want to get to, and help them to fill the gap. So really, I'm a gap filler more than anything. And up until a few years ago, I was standing on stage every week in front of, sometimes a few thousand people doing my stuff, which was great. And then at the end of 2019, my wife said to me, Michael, next year, I want to travel a lot less. We were away from home 159 nights out of the year. And I said, sweetie, I promise you in 2020, we will travel a lot less. I'm going to tell you.
What did you know?
True to my word, we travel a lot less. And I had to reinvent myself, really. So I started to do stuff online like a lot of people did. And then I just asked the question, which was, if I could help you with something, what would it be? I did a little survey, time management, how to be brilliant. Would it be something around customer service? These are all the things I've written about. And at the last minute, literally just about to press send, I wrote, or how to write a book. And 75% of people clicked how to write a book. I thought, oh, there's something there. So I created a program called Write That Book. We've had over 2,000 people through a pop-up and a challenge in the last 2 years. We've got loads of published authors. So as much as it's nice for me to hold up my books, and I'll happily join in with the fellas and do a bit of that, the really exciting thing for me is all those books on the shelf that say brilliant, right up to the L on brilliant, and that's going that way. are all written and published by people who've done write that book. And it's the
brilliant.
best feeling in the world. You guys know when you open that box and your first book is there's nothing like it. And I'm helping people to achieve that every day. It's joyous. It's wonderful. I love it.
Love it. Great story. Can I just add something, Michael? When you talk about on the stage, the very first time that I met Michael, I was actually in the crowd, and it was an action coach, BEF, and Michael was hosting it. And I've still got the Hair Bear Bunch theme in my head from Michael. It was just, and that's when I knew I like this guy.
Oh, so was that the one in Liverpool?
Yes.
Do you know I did that event with a broken back?
Oh.
And I had no idea how badly broken it was. I broke it the week before. I had an appointment to get a scan on the Monday after that event. I had the scan, and the specialist said, "Don't move quickly. Don't jump about." I was thinking, flipping out 2 days ago, I'm in Liverpool with 2,000 people doing a Hair Bear Bunch dance. I could have paralyzed myself.
Oh my God.
Good.
And that makes it even more impressive.
I didn't know how bad it was.
I can juggle, guys, if that helps. Do you know, I picked the best people for this show today, didn't I? Hey,
yes.
So
yes,
my first question, all right, I don't know who wants to take this, but why on earth did you write your first book, and what was the motivation to do that? So I'll just let you into a little secret. I've just listened to. I love your audiobooks, John. I've just listened to your Evergreen Assets book. If you want to hold that up and show everybody, and in there, one of your assets is a book, and everyone's got a book in them. So I've actually started writing my book, but that's it. That's all I've done. So I want to know what your motivation was and why you wrote that first book. And as I mentioned to you, John, I'll let you go first again.
Cool. So I exited the day-to-day running of our main business probably 5 or 6 years ago now, and decided, well, I'm a little bit young to just spend the rest of my life on the golf course. So what am I going to do? So I want to help other small business owners to, again, avoid the mistakes that I made when I first started out, to learn from what I've done. I thought, actually, well, what we'll do, we'll set up a little mini mastermind. So I decided around my kitchen table, third Thursday of every month, I'd get 6 people together. Every month they'd turn up. I'd give them some homework. I'd give them a book to read. I'd just be there as a sounding board for any questions they'd have. And I'd help them, see if I could help them grow their business. And that worked brilliantly. And then suddenly some more people found their way into my kitchen, and 6 people became 8, 8 became 10, 10 became 12, 12 became 13. Then we ran out of chairs. And this was a problem. We had to play musical chairs every third Thursday of the month. It was first come, first served. So I got to the end of that year and thought, I really want to help more people next year, because it's great. And again, I've seen the reaction of those 12 people, and I know I can make a difference in people's lives. But it's only 12 people, and I wanted to think big. And I thought, well, let's write a book. And people have been saying to me for years, you should write a book, John, because I used to blog. And a lot of people didn't know my full story. They didn't know the background. Said, you need to share this with the world. And eventually, one of my mentors said to me, you've got the time now. You've got the stories. You need to get this out there. And I said, yeah, okay, no worries. How hard can it be? So that was my motivation, was wanting to help people. Actually getting it out there was a different matter, but I think we might come to that in a second.
I think we will with Michael in the room. So as I just mentioned, Michael, go on. Michael, tell us why you wrote your first book then. While you were on the roof.
Listen, I created an audio program first. So I loved audios. I used to do the old Nightingale Conan stuff. Do you remember getting those?
Yeah.
6 CDs or 6 cassettes and things like that. So I created my own. And then one day I was very lucky to meet with a guy called David Bell, who was the director of People for Pearson, the publishers. And I gave him a copy of the CDs as a gift. And he looked at the title and he said, is this a book? And I no, he said, it should be. I'm going to introduce you to somebody called Rachel Stock. And Rachel Stock at that time was the #1 person for personal development publishing in the UK. Like the rules of work and all those rules books and all that, they're all hers. She's brilliant. So I met her in a hotel in Leeds, in the Malmaison Hotel. And we talked about the book, and she said, we want to publish this. I want to do it. And I was like, brilliant. I've set a goal that my book's going to be published by the end of this year. And she went, oh, it won't be this year. It'll be next year. It takes like a year and a half for the whole process. And I was like, no. I have to get it published this year. I always achieve my goals. And I've written a goal. I met with David, and he's like, but Michael, we can't do it this year. And I said, if there was a way, this is a great question. If there was a way, what would it be? And she said, the only possible way would be if you'd already written it, because I have another author who's missed their deadline and there could be an opportunity to take their slot. And I looked her straight in the eyes and I went, I have written it. She went, really? Like, yeah, it's all. She said, you've not mentioned that before now. I went, oh, yeah, it's all written, it's all done. And so she said, okay, if you can have the manuscript to me by next Tuesday, this is Thursday, if you can have the manuscript to me by Tuesday, you've got a chance. So it was Easter weekend. Easter weekend coming. I got in the car and I rang my wife, I rang Christy, and I said, cancel everything this weekend. We're writing a book. And we wrote How to Be Brilliant in 4 days and literally printed it out. You had to print it out in those days, and hand delivered the manuscript. And it was when the 10th anniversary edition came out, I thought, I'm going to have to tell Rachel, because I wanted to put the story in about what I'd done, how I'd told this lie and got away with it. And I got in touch with Rachel. I said, I don't know if you know this. And I went through the whole story, and she said, Michael, I knew you hadn't written it. And I was like, Rachel goes, yeah, but I knew you would. I knew you could do it. So first book took 4 days. My last book took 4 years. Wow. And then I did a self-publish last year, which took 3 weeks. So it's a weird thing, isn't it? So it was urgency more than anything that made me write my first book.
But yeah, serious motivation. So Stuart, why did you write your book then?
Yeah, I just did it for the money, mate.
Well, I bet you're disappointed.
Yeah. 2 years later, the royalties are 67 pence. No, my motivation for writing the book was through a personal experience. When I had the business and the business was doing well, I had a BlackBerry in those days. Remember them? You had a wee keyboard and everything on it. And there was always somebody wanting to speak to you. There was always somebody saying, hey, Stuart, do you want to go and do a track day? Hey, Stuart, do you want to? And then when the business failed, I'm like, hello? I actually phoned Vodafone to see if they disconnected me. And I vowed if I could help a business owner avoid business failure, even one, it would be mission accomplished. And that's what drove me to writing the book. However, I had no idea writing the book was going to be so hard. Not physically writing the book, not creating the manuscript, writing the book, but actually reliving and uncovering the whole story. Because then there was so many times I just looked at myself and went, what a dick. Oh, sorry, can you say that? I forgot we're live. Because then I'd realised how avoidable those mistakes were. Brilliant. So it was difficult writing the book, but only because I was opening up wounds that my kind of subconscious mind had parked.
Wow. Amazing stories. That is great. We've got a question here from Haley. She's in the midst of writing a book and no motivation except one day during a dark period in my life, I just picked up my laptop and started typing. In 5 minutes, I went from binge watching the Hallmark Channel to typing an outline for 3 books and finishing the first chapter. Crazy. Excellent. Oh, that's awesome, Haley. Have you finally finished? Do you know any of these guys? Tell us more. Okay, so I've got some specific questions here.
Oh.
John, why have you written 2 more books when it's widely publicized that you said you'd never write another book?
So what happened was I was very proud of this book. And I stood on stage and I'd hired a yacht club and everything. We had a proper book launch and I'd put everything into this book. As far as I was concerned, this was 20 years of just everything that was in my brain. This was how to run a business, everything I know. Great, there you go. There is no need for another book. And at the book launch, I was asked by one of the press we'd invited there, are you going to write another book? And just before I even had a chance to think about it, there was no way I am writing another bloody book, because at that moment, I'd just gone through the horrible stage. And the horrible stage is the editing. It's getting this thing ready. When you think you are finished and your book is finished and you have a nice Word document or a nice Google Doc and it's all done and dusted, brilliant, you're about halfway there. And I had a little bit of a wobble with this book because I thought I was finished. And I proudly proclaimed in a business networking group I was in, I finished my book. And they said, great, you need to speak to this lady. She'll sort you out with getting it all published. I went, great. So I had a call with this lady called Colette. And Colette said, great, John, have you sorted out the Kindle version? I went, no, but I'll sort that later. Have you done the proofing? The what? Have you got a cover sorted? No. Have you got a table of contents done? No. Have you got an ISBN? And I asked, what? Have you done this? Have you done that? No. She said, don't worry. I can do all this for you. I went, oh, brilliant. That's great. She said, it takes 12 weeks. I went, I've booked a yacht club for 5 weeks' time. And she went, okay, we can do it as long as nothing goes wrong and you do everything I tell you to do. And we had lots of conversations where I wanted to cut some corners and she wouldn't let me. And she kept saying to me, how many books are you going to write? And I said, I'm only ever going to write this one. She went, well, let's make it perfect then, shall we? Let's avoid all the 1-star reviews. Let's make sure this is the best piece of work, the best body of work it can ever be. So when I stood on stage, having just worked flat out for 5 weeks to get this thing here, there was no way I was going to ever write another book. But then 6 weeks later, I quite enjoyed having written a book. And I was basking in the warm glow of having a book. So about a year later, I went on holiday.
John, can I just interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
It's like running the marathon, isn't it? Nobody wants to run it. When you finish the marathon, that's it, never doing it again. And then they want to. But the big question is, did you get any 1-star reviews? Have you had any 1-star reviews?
I have. Do you know, I celebrated.
Excellent.
I jumped around like a loon when I got my first 1-star review. I remember exactly where I was. I was in a hotel room in Bristol. I was in a mastermind group. And I was actually moaning to the people in the group that I hadn't had a 1-star review. And someone checked and went, yes, you have. You have now.
They probably just did it for you straight away while you were there.
It probably was, yeah. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. Ashley knows the story behind my LinkedIn tagline. If the Daily Star wrote business books, that is the title of one of my 1-star reviews.
Right. Oh, brilliant.
Said, I'm having that.
I made a series of videos. You can find them of me reading my 1-star reviews.
Oh, like Jimmy Kimmel's mean tweets.
Yeah, so it's like exactly that. It's author reads his own 1-star reviews. More people watch that than any of my stuff which was positive. Anything where I've talked about here's the content of Flip It or anything like nobody wants to watch that. Yeah. Author reads his 1-star reviews. Thousands and thousands of people have watched those. They're great.
Oh, brilliant! I'm gonna have to go through them then.
That is classic. We want that link. We want that link.
Yeah.
Stuart, your question was all about your business failing, and you don't hold anything back. And you've already answered the question, but I want to know what the most difficult thing to write about was, because you have absolutely exposed all of your failings in that book. And I just what's the the biggest thing that you sort of like?
That's a great question, Ashley. And you're absolutely, I've already explained that the purpose for writing the book was to share the mistakes, the avoidable mistakes that I made, and also the fact that not just with the avoidable mistakes, but the fact that actually success hid those mistakes. Did I hold anything back? Yes, I did, because I had to. Right, so I'm going to read a paragraph from the book, right, about the bit that I actually kind of had to hold back on. I did say this chapter had a dark edge. I was actually going to leave this out. When the business failed, my bank manager, I'll call him X, him and I agreed that we'd shake hands and walk into the sunset. He knew and appreciated everything he did. Sorry, he knew that I knew he appreciated everything he did for us. He bent the rules. He fought our corner. He was just a lovely, lovely guy, a true gent and a rarity in the commercial banking world. I can't go into any more detail than that. There was nothing dodgy. Trust me, the guy was poker straight. He was just a gent. Not long after I started my new role, my accountant called me. Have you spoken to X? He inquired. I told him that we shook hands and agreed to walk into the sunset. Oh, he said, and asked why. X was a senior partner at the bank and was summoned to a meeting. And at that meeting, reported as being very heated, X left, cleared his desk, went home, and committed suicide. To this day, I don't know any more than that, nor if I'm honest, I want to. Did X do something to help us that later caused him to be reprimanded? We just don't know, nor will we ever know. I think about X every time I see that bank. Where are we as a society when the pressures of work lead to that? And the bit that's not in the book, and the bit that nobody knows, and they're getting it live, and you're getting it for the first time ever, was we had a personal guarantee. And that personal guarantee was never called in. Why? Wow. And it's now past the statute of limitations. So bank, cheerio. And that,
oh, please, you lifted that there, Stuart.
That I had to really hold back on because I wanted to rip that bank apart. So there's the bit that I held off, Ashley.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. I remember reading that, and thank you, Stuart. I think that's the thing with the book, isn't it? You can put anything in there, and so many people leave stuff out, but you put everything in there. So, Stuart, that is stunning. That is stunning. Thank you so much, and thanks for reading a bit of your book. Yes. I'm still waiting for the audio book, but that's a question for. Well, let's bring that question up now, because as you know, I'm writing this book. Should we do an audiobook? And I think Michael's got something to add as well. So everyone's nodding. So why haven't you then, Stuart? Or are you? Is that another secret?
I took notes when Michael was talking about it because I did a podcast. I think we did 30. We did a series of podcasts, and they went down incredibly well. And a lot of people came back and said, "Where can I get the audiobook? Where can I get the audiobook?" So it's on Kindle, but it's not on audio yet, and it's just laziness on my behalf because what I need to do is I firmly believe, and this is one for John and Michael, and I'm sure they're both going to go, "Yep." My opinion is, if you're going to do an audio book, it's the author that bloody reads it.
100%.
Right? Absolutely. See this? Yes, and welcome to How to Wreck Your Business. And some of these books are unlistenable, right? But the trouble is with my voice, coming from Glasgow,
Brilliant.
I maybe need to just maybe fine tune that a little bit.
Okay. Whoa. Stop it right there. First of all, I'm do a program called Write That Book. I've told you guys just before we start, but I'm this afternoon recording Voice That Book because voice is the biggest growth area. Audiobooks is massive. It's accessible. Everybody's got one of these. Everybody can get an audio. It's very, very quick. The thing is, people are terrified about the idea of recording it. It's like, oh, it's going to be really hard. I need to be in a studio. No, you don't. You can do everything now at home. Oh. And if you think about it, Fern Cotton, one of the most popular podcasts in the world now, she does it all under a quilt. She has a step ladders, and she does it sat there under a quilt and gets brilliant audio. You can get the kit for £100 to record everything. You can upload it, you can sell it. Stuart, if you haven't done your audio in 90 days, I'm going to smack your arse. Because, and the other thing is, it needs to be your voice. And this is one of the things that people don't realize. I used to try and disguise my voice because I'm from the northeast of England. Right. And I would be and I think the important thing, as long as you can be understood, regional accents are brilliant. There's no point at all in you being all, full on Glasgow, because if people can't understand it, you'll get negative reviews for that. But you being your authentic self, telling that story. And the other thing that you can do, and I would absolutely suggest that you do this, it's so important to do, is you go off piste. When you do your audio, don't read it word for word. If you go, I'm going to tell you something now about this, or, as I'm telling you this right now, I'm reliving that moment. There was something I just want to share with you about suppliers that isn't in the book, but I want to tell you that now. And then what you can do is you can then sell the audio with 2 hours worth of bonus material. So people who've already got the book then want the audio as well.
Yeah. Bonus material. It's like the director's cut, isn't it?
Yes.
You've got to do it, Stuart. Tell me you're going to do it.
Do you know what? I'm going to take that challenge. Just one question. I've got a fairly young German Shepherd that tends to launch every time the postman or a human being tends to move.
Yeah.
Would I edit that out or leave it in?
That's just another excuse, Stuart.
Turn it into a feature. Why not?
Excellent. Okay, I accept the challenge. April, May. I will have that done by the end of June.
Oh my goodness, we've got all these things going on today. Can I just add something into the mix, guys? Because I consume most of my books via audiobook. I do like a good audiobook. Now I've just listened to They Can't Hurt Us or Me. I can't remember what it's called, but it's by David Goggins.
Can't hurt me. Yeah.
Can't hurt me. Yeah.
Wow. But the audio version, he's got his mate to read it, and then they get to the end of the chapter. And the guy turns around and says, "Tell us about this." And so Goggins goes off on one, and it is absolutely incredible way to consume the book, because you're getting.
Let me tell you something about that. Right. First of all, I listened to that book, and there's very few books I don't like, but I did not like that one.
Oh wow!
All, right.
Me too.
First of all, the stuff he's done and that he's encouraging other people to do is totally irresponsible.
Yeah.
What's wrong with running on broken legs?
Other people will die and will cause permanent injury.
Yeah.
And you imagine these young kids who are reading that or listening to that and kind of going, David fucking Goggins, you got to fucking do everything. Everything is curses all the way through, which is fine every now and then to emphasize something, but not for punctuation. It's lazy when you're using the F word for punctuation. Sorry to go off on one with this, but I think
you carry on.
But the main thing is people trying to replicate him. There's people already had terrible injuries. People have already had problems, and I think people will die because they try to be like him. Don't be Goggins.
Wow.
Be Michael, Stuart, John, Ashley. That's who we need to be. The best versions of ourselves, not trying to be like him. Sorry.
No,
absolutely.
Yeah. So you need to read it or listen to it, Stuart, because it is incredible. But yeah, it's just.
I'm not going to listen to it now. It's just a
Listen to the
2
free
star
bit.
reviews.
Yeah, absolutely.
The intro. Listen to John's book.
Yeah, definitely.
And John,
we get any strapped up, duct taping broken legs, gorging on chocolate donuts, and running 100 marathons. For
I
me.
know. I was pissing blood, but I kept going. Oh yeah, great.
There's a bit towards the end of that book, isn't it, where he says he's, I don't know, in his late 30s, early 40s, and thought that he was crippled for life.
Yeah.
And that's what people are
been through
emulating.
been through two marriages, all that type of. I'm like, where's your wheel of life?
Yeah.
Anyway,
this is what we were talking about before we actually went live, John, wasn't it? That you and I have got lifestyle businesses.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. For those who's come out and say she loves our accent, so you do not have any excuses at all whatsoever, Stuart.
Do you know, I had to audition for my first audiobook. The producers, the publishers of the audiobook said, we want to get a proper narrator in. And I said, no, it's a condition. I went, no, you can audition for it if you like. So I went, okay, no worries. Let me find the most personal story I can possibly find in this book. Recorded it, and they went, yeah, you can do it.
But John, the thing is, though, was that a publisher who asked you to do that?
That was a publisher, yes.
Wow. Which publisher was it?
It was WF House.
I mean, what are they thinking about? It's your book.
I know.
Admittedly, did you sign the rights over to them?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is where they get fiction authors. And do
you still own your rights?
Yeah, they've written the book and they think, I could narrate it myself. Well, yeah.
But I'm just thinking about
non-fiction, it's got to be done by the author.
Just a quick technical thing, though. Do you own the rights for your book?
Yes.
Okay, great. If you sign with a publisher who wants to take the rights, carve out the audio rights as part of your contract. Say to them, I would like to carve out the audio rights. Almost every publisher will let you do that.
Okay.
Because they want the book more than anything. I mean, it might be less so now. I don't know, but I wish I'd done that, because with all of my, other than How to Be Brilliant, which I was so excited about getting a book deal, I would have signed anything. I was like, I'm getting a book deal with Pearson. Great, I'll sign here. Oh, you have to take my firstborn. That's fine. Crack on. And I lost the audio rights, and I don't think that the audio for How to Be Brilliant is as good as it could be. But after that, they're all mine, and I own all the audios, and I'm so pleased because the expansion that you can have on that is huge.
Definitely. I know we mentioned before that I grew up listening to your. Grew up. That sounds like when I was young, I used to listen to Michael Heppell books.
That's a bit of a slap. You're basically calling you dad there, Michael.
I don't mind. I'll take it. If John's listening to the books, I'll take it. I'm fine.
You've got to remember that John is in Plymouth and they didn't get tape recorders until 1995. So
when I was growing up, I remember listening to Ashley. Yes.
now you are taking the mickey. So Michael, you've written the most books out of everybody in the room today. Okay, yeah. But when did you go from being author to helping new authors, and which do you prefer?
Oh, that's what a great question. At the moment, I love helping other people. I think there's, everybody here, other than you, Ashley, but you'll get there soon. We know you well, has had that moment when you open a box and you see your book. It's the most brilliant feeling. And I now encourage everybody who does write that book to record an unboxing video. Yeah. I said, because you'll want to remember that moment. And you see them and they go, oh yeah, I'll do it. Hey, I'm opening up now. And you just see that moment when they suddenly go, oh, it's real. And you know what it is? It's the smell of books, printed books. And you open it, it's like, oh my goodness, that's mine. I did that. And you can see them and they pick up their book and they're holding it like this and they rub the cover. And seeing people do that is phenomenal. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. I wrote a book in lockdown. I mean, how's that for a cliche? I bet one in 5 people wrote a book in lockdown. I wrote this a book called 17, and I did it because I was teaching everyone to write books. I wasn't writing one myself, and I missed it. And people were excited. They're talking about their titles, and they're talking about the promise, and they were talking about building their avatars and their audience and all that type of stuff. And I said to my wife, everybody's writing books, and I'm not sure. Well, why don't you? So, all right, okay. So I wrote this book 17, and I got the buzz again. I absolutely got the buzz of opening the box, and there it is. Oh, wow, that's good. So I'm writing another book at the moment called Write That Book, which is a book on how to write that book, which is going to be published in September. And I think I'll get the buzz again. But right now, it's helping other people. It's the best feeling. It's as good as having kids when your book's published. And the really important thing is that you can create that for yourself this year. You can start now, and your book can be published this year. I promise you.
Love it. Fantastic. Mike, I'm just trying to find a picture, actually. It's going to be way far back, but I'm trying to find it where you mentioned the opening the first box. Well, I actually self-published, right? And because of my background in print, we did it in style. So during lockdown, when there was just no traffic on the roads and basically everybody was thinking they were going to die, my books managed to make it up, and they came in an Arctic. Right,
oh,
so
great.
I've actually got the first pallet coming off the truck, but I can't find the picture, unfortunately.
Oh,
but you're right.
Man.
What an absolute moment. I'm breaking the lockdown rules, being out the house as the first pallet of books is getting rolled off. In fact, here we go. Here it is. Let me just hold that up. There we go.
Oh, yes.
The road. And there's a truck, right?
Yeah. That is a book delivery and a half.
That's a book delivery, right? And the driver turns round and he says, I tell you what, he says, I've delivered a lot of Amazon books, but Jesus Christ, man, you must read a lot. I says, no, it's my own book, honest.
Brilliant. That's priceless. That is priceless.
So there you go.
So you've got a challenge coming up. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah,
Michael?
sure. So we in April we've got a Write That Book challenge. It's 5 days, and during that week we teach you everything you know so that you can create your own plan to write, publish, and sell your book. And there's lots of people who do book writing courses, lots of people who do marketing courses. There's not many people who do it all, and we do everything, because there's no point at all in you writing your book and once you've got your 3 mates to buy it, not selling it, you've got to be able to sell it afterwards. And I don't care whether you are signed with Penguin or you're self-publishing, you have to learn how to sell your book. So we teach people how to do that. So it's 5 days. It's very expensive. It's £9 to do the week. £9, yeah.
I've not achieved that in royalties yet, so
Yeah.
maybe.
It's
maybe what I'll do is I'll go and see if I can get a loan from my wife, right? And I'll join that.
Yeah. Well, look, the lovely thing is, some people they've published several books and they join. Other people, they haven't even got an idea and they join. And it's a brilliant community. The reason that we that I do it more than anything is for the final part of the challenge. We do a thing called cover story, where people create their own book cover. Now, it mightn't be the one that it ends up being, but it's that realization of seeing your name on the front of a book. And it's even though it's a mock-up, just to see your name on the front, it's like, oh my goodness. And it's just that thing that we said before when John was describing himself as author. Well, as soon as you can put those words, I'm an author, I'm a published author, everything changes. If you're in business, then honestly, what a difference it makes to business. It's huge. If you've always wanted to write a children's book because you've had the stories and you told kids stories, that feeling of reading your story, or people getting in touch and saying, I read this book to my granddaughter and she absolutely loved it. There's no feeling like that. If you've got that fiction novel in your head, Bodice Ripper, sci-fi, whatever it might be, when that's done, it's there forever. After you've gone, your book is still there. So I have this thing you see on the front of my T-shirt there. It says, it's not the book you read that will change your life. It's the book you write.
Yes.
And I firmly believe that it is a life-changing experience. And that's what we do with Write That Book. So I think there'll be around about 200 people who will be on the next one. And we have coaches. We have lots of people have come together. At the end of it, we launch a masterclass. The masterclass is a big 3-month program. That's not £9. It's a little bit more. But we bring together really, really top people. So I interview, for an agent, I interviewed Rory Scarf, who's head of the Blair Partnership. You've not heard of the Blair Partnership, but they represent J.K. Rowling and various other people. We do, we've got Eloise.
Did she write a book?
Yeah.
One or two.
You're an author.
I think she's written 3 now. And we have a publishing lawyer who comes in to help us. So we do everything, just so people are really, really covered. Yeah. But the most important thing is helping them to get to that moment where it's there, it's in their hands, and they've done it.
Michael, there's one thing that I'd like to add there.
Sorry, go on. Yeah.
If I can, because you've mentioned it a couple of times about the excitement of opening the first box, and we've all been fortunate enough and privileged enough to experience that. There was one other thing as well that happened earlier this year for me, and it was making it to the #1 slot on Amazon. So in the business section, we were the #1 bestseller, and that was the game changer from a possibility, from the credibility on LinkedIn and whatnot within the business community. Becoming that #1 bestseller was a game changer as well.
Well, can we have a quick game of Top Trump, Stuart? Do you mind?
Yeah. Well, you win.
That's Sunday.
Yes.
Yeah. This is but mine's a Sunday Times #1 bestseller.
Yeah, mine isn't.
And you know what the funny thing is? Talk about the biggest fluke of the world ever. That book only got there because of one reason.
Is that Chris Evans?
I'll quickly tell the story. I'll do the 60-second version. Chris Evans, when he was on Radio 2, got a copy of Flip It, and he loved it. And his producer got in touch and said, "Would you like to be interviewed on Chris's show?" It's like, yeah, go on. and he did the interview, and he used to do the drive time show, and it was the week before Christmas. And he and at 5 o'clock he came on. He said, "Welcome to the Drive Time Show, Chris Evans. Today's show comes to you by my Christmas book recommendation. It's called Flip It. It's by a guy called Michael Heppell, and everybody needs to buy 10 copies. I've read them all. This is the best." And I've got him on the show later on. I was sat upstairs waiting to go and do this telephone interview. And talk about thinking, fucking hell, this is about to kick off. And my publicist,
that's a great story.
Publicist at Pearson, he sent me a text. And he just went, "Oh fuck!" And I was like, "No, this is good." And he went, "It's the week before Christmas. Who's going to print them?" And I was like, "Oh, is that a problem?" He went,
"I know a printer. I could have."
Exactly, Stuart. And it's sold out everywhere. And then people were waiting to get copies. And so there was pre-orders and all that type of stuff. And then suddenly they released this next wave of like 50,000 copies or something. And it went number one on Sunday Times, number one bestseller for 1 week and 1 week only. But I tell you what, I don't care. I was the Sunday Times number one non-fiction author for 1 week. And,
that's brilliant, Michael. That's a great story.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
If I ever see Chris Evans, I'm going to give him a big full-on snog.
So I think it's only fair then, because Michael threw me down the challenge to get the audiobook done in 90 days, and I've accepted that challenge. So my challenge back to Michael is to get his book then a New York Times bestseller then. How about that?
Yeah, well, I would probably need to know someone like a Howard Stern who would do the same thing on his show. Do you know what? The whole New York number one bestseller thing, or the New York Times bestseller, is very, very challenging.
Yeah,
I mean, most people have bought their place there effectively. It's a big deal. You are looking at 100,000 books to get in a week, that is. And a lot of the big guys just go in and buy their place.
Yeah.
But you know what, Stuart, as you say, number one business book on Amazon, being able to say that, you know, some people manipulate the system. Some people do it because they have a really good book. And there's no doubt at all you've got a really great book. I mean, the title is absolutely magical. And that often sells a book. I just love the title.
Brilliant. Right, so I've got a load more questions, but we've got no more time. It's crazy. We're gonna go to 1 o'clock. So I've got some great questions here. When you're writing your books, and I don't know who wants to answer this one, but how do you keep going, and do you get writer's block?
There's no such thing as writer's block.
There isn't. Okay.
No such thing. It's absolute bullshit. Writer's block. You know what? You know how you get over writer's block? Write shite. Just write anything to get over it, because I promise you, everyone here who's written a book, we have written some shite.
Yeah.
And the point is that if you sit there going, I haven't got an idea, you don't go anywhere. If you just say, you know what, I'm going to write 500 words of shite. Within those 500 words, there's going to be 100 that you go, oh, I like that. And the next part of the idea will come.
Oh, so Michael, that's where I went wrong, man. I wrote shite and published it.
No, you didn't.
I forgot about the editing bit. When John was talking about, you write the book and that's the easy part, then you need to get it edited, then you need to get it proofed, and I went, oh shit, I never did that. I wondered why it was so easy.
So the other thing, actually, just to the second part of the question is about finding the time to do it. Is that, and we saw that comment earlier on about, you know, going from watching Hallmark Channel to writing. You schedule it in. People don't forget to. You don't forget to eat. You don't forget to sleep. So the key thing is, if you schedule it, what gets scheduled gets done. And you know what? And sometimes you have to make a decision. Am I going to, you know, watch another Father Ted, or am I going to sit down and write 500 words? And at the end of the day, you're going to have had a little laugh at some rerun of something, or you're going to have written a book. Your choice.
Oh, I like that. That's a challenge. What's the hardest bit about writing a book, guys?
Editing. Definitely editing for me.
I'll try that the next time then.
Yeah.
I think for most people, as I say, I've had a couple of thousand go through this process now. It's absolutely self-doubt. Am I good enough?
Oh, wow.
Am I good enough? Will anybody want to buy this? Is my story interesting enough? I'm writing a fiction book. I'm not as good as a Stephen King or a Lee Child or whatever. You don't have to be. I mean, they are the unicorns. They are out there for a reason. The vast majority of people who write, once they get into the groove, actually they can do it. And the really interesting thing is, there are people right now who want to read your book, and it's because it's not there that they haven't. That's the only reason. So find your niche, focus on those people, and they will buy your book.
Good answer. So how many times did you give up writing your book?
Never.
You carried
No,
on.
Michael used the line earlier. I always achieve my goals, and the minute I said I was going to write a book, there was no alternative. I'm writing a book. It's going to happen. I stuck my flag in the ground, and I set a date, and I said 13th of July 2017. This book's coming out, and it came out on the 13th of July 2017.
Perfect.
Even if it nearly killed me, which it did.
So when you finished writing your book, what happens next? Because just writing it, that's like a quarter of the work, is it? I don't know. What would you say?
I think it's about half and half.
Okay.
So I mean, this book, my latest one, Evergreen Assets, I started writing this November 2020. I finished writing it at the end of May. And then I spent 6 months editing it. So it's pretty much half and half writing, half editing for a November launch. It's a lot of work. You know, what does it say? Good books aren't well written. They're well rewritten.
Well edited. Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's a third. A third is writing. A third is publishing, the publishing process, which includes editing, design, which format are you going to use, that type of thing. And a third is selling your book. And that's what I focus on. So my promise is to help people to write, publish, and sell their books. Yeah. And I think that's really key. And I came up with a formula and a method, which I did it for myself first, and then thought, flipping out, other people could do this as well, where we set up a system where people pre-sell. And if you can pre-sell your book, it has to be ready to go. It's got to be legit. You can't pre-sell something that isn't done. You can actually become cost neutral. So that a lot of people are terrified. Oh, I've written my book, but then am I going to pay 2,000 quid to a printer to get them all done? And I don't know how many to print. Well, if you use the pre-sale model, one, you know how many to print, so you don't end up with a garage full. Secondly, you get the money in first. Thirdly, you can do a mega book launch, and you can have everybody on Zoom holding up a copy of your book. And it's just the best feeling in the world. People have got the book at the launch, which is great.
Top tips there. So when's this thing start, Michael? And you've got a goal. You've got a goal as well, haven't you?
First week of April, yeah. First week of April is there's the challenge. So people are joining now. We do pre-stuff, so we send you some pre-information, all that type of gubbins, and then we go live on the very first day of April. I don't want to say April the 1st. It kind of feels like a bit of an April Fool. It's not. We open up a pop-up group. People introduce themselves, all that type of stuff, and then I start training. And every day at 6 p.m. we do a half hour of training, and then we do an Ask Me Anything. And the Ask Me Anything's great. I mean, that is so good. The stuff that people want to know that I haven't even thought about. And by the end of the week, people have an absolute idea of what they want to do. They do cover story. We do a big webinar to finish off, a big celebration, have some prizes. And then we do our next masterclass, which starts end of April and runs through till the summer.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, we'll get people doing that. So we've got a fan in the room, guys. We all know Stephen. He's read all of John's books, and read all of Stuart's books as well. But which one do we start with then for Michael?
I would probably start where I started. Start with How to Be Brilliant. That was the first one, and then after that, if you still like it, then other things will appear. But yeah, definitely start with How to Be Brilliant.
Were you going to say the same thing, John?
I was going to say The Edge. Actually, I think The Edge is my favorite. Once I figured out it wasn't about the guitarist from U2, I think that
there's no mention of Bonio in that book at all, is there?
Bonio.
If you want, it's a weird thing, John, because it's saying about The Edge and about wanting to quit. That was the one, because I did a bit of a silly thing with this one. I went with a different publisher, because I got an agent, which I don't recommend you get an agent unless you really need an agent. And I got an agent, and they did a bit of a bidding war with various publishers. And I ended up getting a really good advance. And I mean, a really good advance. And I suddenly had this massive amount of pressure that I hadn't felt before. Pearson had always done reasonable advances, but nothing you could live on. This one, I wouldn't have had to work for a year, and I would have had plenty of money in the bank. It was great. But the expectation was massive of what it was going to be. And I'd promised them I was going to interview 200 highly successful people and distill their knowledge. Well, after 20 people, they were all saying the same thing. So it's like, so I had to do another 180 interviews just going, I know what you're going to say next. You know, oh, I know what you're going to say next. And they all said the same stuff. So one day I'm interviewing General Sir Mike Jackson, former head of the British Army. Next day I'm interviewing Danny Mayer, who is the world's greatest restaurateur. I looked at their notes. I thought I could swap them. And they literally are giving the same answers. So the greatest restaurateur would run the British Army, and the British Army would run restaurants, you know?
Oh, that's
yeah, that was tough.
So when did writing turn into a thing? And John, you started off saying you'll never write another book, but now you call yourself an author. So when did it turn into a thing?
I was thinking about this earlier. I reckon it was literally when that third book came out. I think the first book, I was a business owner who had written a book. The second book, I felt like I was treating it like the difficult second album. Well, let's see if this was a fluke. When that wasn't, there was a kind of, well, maybe I am an author. But then the minute I started writing book number 3, it was like, okay, I'm writing 3. And whilst I'm writing 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are lined up in the pipeline. I've got, I think, Mike, you might have mentioned the bug earlier. It's like, I've got that. I've got these things that need to come out of me. I've got the creative itch to get this done now. And it's, yeah, for me, I think there was that tipping point between books 2 or 3, but definitely when book 3 came out, this is it now. I'm an author. I am writing a book every 2 years. You know how much I like my routines. So every 2 years. And again, Michael, last year, this book, 2017, 2019, this one had to come out 2021. Of
course.
Everyone said to me, no, you can put it back 6 weeks. You can put it in January. No, I can't. That's 2022. I can't do that.
Yeah.
Had to get it done.
I'm looking at Stephen's asking brilliant questions. I looked at this one. I've looked at his next one as well. The answer to this one about, do you get people to trust to review your book before it's published to test if it's any good and suggest edits? No, you definitely don't. Because everyone's an expert when you ask them. And they're not experts. They're enthusiastic amateurs. And what they'll do is if you say, oh, could you suggest some ideas? They're going to come back with what they think, and they are not experts. So you need someone who's either written and published and sold books, who can give you a review on something, or spend a little bit of money and get an editor to review it. Yeah. Not to do the full edit, just to do a review on what you've done so far. And that could be the best couple of £100 you ever spend to do that.
Yeah, absolutely right, Michael.
People they get the wind knocked out of them. Oh, I gave it to my friend and he's come up with all these ideas and then suddenly it just doesn't happen. Should never have given it to that friend.
I created a beta group. So Stephen was actually part of my beta group, but that is my target market. That's ambitious lifestyle business owners who comprise my previous readers as well.
Yeah.
And again, I was very explicit with my instructions. I don't care about grammatical errors. I don't care about typos. The edit will pick that up.
Yeah.
What I want to know is, what do you love? What do you hate? And where am I missing the mark? And even then, I ignored some of the information because creative control is still mine. Yeah. But I noticed that loads of people were saying, this book is called Evergreen Assets. I get to page 37 or 38 before I even understand what Evergreen Assets are. It's okay, I need to make the introduction more punchy.
Yeah, that's good.
That came from a beta group. Without that, lots of people would pick this book up, get to page 30 and think, I don't get this, and put it down. But again, I didn't ask my dad to have a look at it. My next door neighbour.
No, never do that. Your mum and dad will always love the book.
Mine didn't. Can we answer Stephen's next question? Because I think it's a really interesting one. Not a lot of people know the answer to, which is, how much money do authors get from library loans? So nothing unless you register your book with library loans. So what you have to do is you've got to go to the Public Rights Lending Service. And if you want to go to the website, it's all moved into the British Library now. So it's just bl.uk. So www.bl.uk. Register your books in there. And then if ever a book gets borrowed from a library, you get a small amount per per lend, and they cap it so that the J.K. Rowlings and the Stephen Kings can only get so much, and then they split out all the rest of the money between everybody else. So smaller authors can do quite well, and I get a couple of £1,000 a year from lends.
Wow.
And they're like, it's like 27 pence here or 19 pence there or whatever. But it really, I had no idea. But unless you're registered, you don't get it. And the other thing you can do is once you've got your book published with a ISBN, you can ask friends to go to the library and ask to borrow it. And then they go to the library, and the library goes, "Oh, we haven't got it," so they have to order it in. and then once it's there, you get a sale. You get less on the sale, but you then can get library rights as well.
Oh, these are top tips.
Absolutely.
Guys, we're done. We are done. I know.
We're just getting going.
I know we're just... So look, if you guys want to do this again, I am more than happy to facilitate this. It's been absolutely delightful. Final word from you guys. Why should I write my book?
It will be the best business card you've ever had.
Okay. Thank you, John. Stuart?
That's actually a very good question. For me, it's all about... Well, I think everybody's got a book in them. And I think you're doing yourself a massive injustice if you keep that book inside. The book's got to be outside.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with John and Stuart. I would add a caveat to John's. Make sure it's a good business card. You don't get any business by handing out
not Vistaprint
cards. It's got to be a good book. Otherwise, it's not the best business card. Stuart, you're absolutely right about holding it inside you is crazy. 92% of people say that at some point in their lives, they would like to write a book. Only 1% does. What happens to the 91%? And the 91% die with regret. Don't regret not writing your book. Write that book.
Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashley.
No. I've just got. I didn't big up John's book, so you can find that at bigidea.co.uk, and you can also find Stuart's book. Oh, where's Stuart's book gone? There it is. It's down there. How to Write Your Business. Guys, you've been absolutely delightful. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot today, and we've had some lovely comments. And so thank you very much indeed. And see you all again maybe next time.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashley. Michael.
Thank you.
Fantastic.